To have you on International Tit Bits on Atlantic Television Network. This is a show where we bring you news, events, and stories from across the world. Here we ensure that the real on-time news are packaged for the viewing pleasure of the people. And today we'll be looking at some numbers of stories. This one is coming from Thailand. Thai parliament to pick prime minister after two unsuccessful attempts on StarTimes. Burning religious texts could escalate tension in Muslim world. That's from Chris Tasson. On attack, Ukrainian troop launch operation in Zaporizhia.
And on gender discrimination, organizers stop transgender from participating in Miss Italy pageants. And riots, headquarters of President Bazoum party under attack. And from Sweden, Quran burnings affect country's image abroad, worsening security situation.
This and many more stories we'll be looking at when we return from this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is International Tit Bits on Atlantic Television Network, and if you're just joining us, you are welcome. And now to our main stories for the day. Thailand's parliament will try to pick a new prime minister next week following the unsuccessful attempt. It said Thursday as political uncertainty grew more than 2 months after the country's election. Parliament said the vote will take place August 4th. The decision came despite the House Speaker saying 2 days ago that the vote could be delayed pending clarity from the Constitutional Court on the constitutionality of Parliament's vote last week to block Peter Lavjaranrat, whole Progressive Move Forward Party captured the most seats in election to be nominated for Prime Minister a second time. The government's ombudsman positioned the court's role on the issues after receiving complaints from private citizens and lawmakers from Peter's party that Parliament's vote was unconstitutional. Peter lost a face vote in Parliament on July 13. Thai media say the court will meet next Thursday, a day before the new scheduled vote, to determine whether to accept the case. If accepted, it could order the vote to be postponed until it issued a ruling.
Sweden's Prime Minister said Thursday that police have received several permit applications for the burning of religious texts in the country next week, and that he fears this may escalate tensions further with the Muslim world. In his first public comment since the start of the Quran burning crisis that has severely strained Stockholm's ties with Muslim nations, Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson told Swedish news agency he was extremely concerned about some new wave of discretions. It's the police that make those decisions, not me. If their permits are granted, we face a number of days with the obvious risk of serious things happening, Kristersson told TT. A recent string of public Quran desecrations by a handful of anti-Islam activists in Sweden and more recently in neighboring Denmark has sparked angry demonstrations in Muslim countries.
And on Ukraine attack, Kyiv forces reportedly launched a significant maintenance operation in Zaporizhia, pushing towards the village of Zaboteny. News of possible breakthrough came as the Volodymyr Zelensky hinted at a significant win on the front line last night. By the way, today our boys had very good results at the front, he said in a nightly video address. Ukraine has been tight-lipped about its highly anticipated counter-offensive, reinforced by tank donated by a host of the Western countries, including the UK. According to the Institute for the Study of War think tank, the battlefield condition around Rabatani, as well as the composition of Russian forces, offer important colors to speculation about the Ukrainian counter-offensive. The ISW said
more than 100 transgender men have entered the Miss Italy pageant this week, according to an activist leading a protest against recent comments by the pageant's organizer, who said trans women wouldn't be allowed to compete. The comments came after another European pageant, Miss Netherlands, crowned its first transgender winner, Ricky Valeri Cole, this month. About a week later, Patrizia Mirigliani, the official organizer of Miss Italy, told an Italian radio station that Miss Italy wouldn't allow trans women to compete. Lately, beauty contests have been trying to make the news using strategies that I think are a bit absurd, Mirigliani said. According to the Italian news outlet Premoto Nazionale, she added that Miss Italy has historically allowed only people who were assigned female at birth to enter, probably because even then it was foreseen that beauty could undergo modifications, or that women could undergo modifications, or that men could undergo modifications, according to Primato Nazionale.
And on riots, supporters of a coup in Niger have attacked the headquarters of the hosted president's party, sitting on the fire and stoning and burning cars outside. A small group of arrestees has broken where leaders' flags were on show. The army has now given its backing to the troop who took President Mohamed Bazoum captive on Wednesday. Russia joined other countries, and the UN is calling for Mr. Bazoum's release. The 64-year-old, who was elected as Niger's president 2 years ago, is a key Western ally in a fight against Islamic militants in West Africa. The US and France, the former colonial power, both have military bases in a oil-rich country and have condemned the coup video.
A spate of Quran burnings in Sweden has badly affected the country's image abroad and led to a deterioration of the security situation at home, Security Service SAPO has warned. Many Muslim-majority countries have expressed outrage. Last week, protesters set fire to Sweden's embassy in Iraq after learning police in Stockholm had given permission for more book burning. For Swedes, the issue has thrown up a major dilemma because at stake is a historic and fundamental right dating back to 1766. Sweden has one of the world's strongest legal protections for freedom of expression, says Martin Skolds, professor at Stockholm University's Faculty of Law. The Nordic nation also scrapped its blasphemy laws in the 1970s, of opinion that questions religious messages or that can be perceived as hurtful to the believer. But its entire rights-led government is now considering possible changes to the laws that have allowed the Quran burnings in Stockholm to take place.
Police say the death of Sinead O'Connor is not being treated as suspicious following the discovery of a body on Wednesday evening with great men, including in 1992 when she was controversially wrapped up by picture of Pope John Paul II during a performance on US TV show Saturday Night Live. Threading the picture which she removed from the frame is her mother's home after her death was a protest against child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church.
Basketball star Kevin Durant has said the NBA commissioner could smell cannabis in him as a lobby to end the league's ban on the drug. He smelled it when I walked in, so I didn't really have to say much. You know what I'm saying? Durant said in an interview. The 34-year-old added the drug is so commonly used in the league. It's like wine at this point. NBA players are no longer prohibited. The station signed a new collective bargaining agreement last month that removed the drug from its list of banned substances. The policy change drew praise from the likes of rapper Snoop Dogg, who touted its health benefits and how it could actually help ease the opioids and all the pills that they've been given and the injections. Players have not been subject to random tests for cannabis since the 2019 to 2020 season.
A Jewish organization has written at Amazon Prime asking the streaming service to remove Bollywood fame Bawal from its platform for its insensitive portrayal of the Holocaust. A Simon Westenthal Center says the film Adolf Hitler and the Azujis death cam as metaphor. It stars popular actor Varun Dhawan and Zavi Kapoor in the lead role as the recently married couple
To be charged over efforts to overturn the 2020 U.S. election result. Mr. Trump's attorneys, John Lauro and Todd Blanche, met officials at the office of Special Prosecutor Jack Smith in Washington, D.C., U.S. media reports. It wasn't clear what was discussed or if the Special Prosecutor attended. Mr. Trump's lawyers were told to expect an indictment, according to NBC. Meetings between defense lawyers and prosecutors are not unusual ahead of charges being issued. Earlier this month, the former president said he had been told by Jack Smith's office that he was a target of the federal investigation into efforts to overturn his defeat in the presidential election. In June, Mr. Smith's team charged Mr. Trump in a different case where he is accused of mishandling classified documents. Mr. Trump has also been charged in New York City with falsifying business records over 2016 huge money payment.
An investigation led to the identification of the suspect and her arrest. The prosecutors charged Ms. Obey with mocking and insulting the Prophet and using social media to harm Islamic scientists, AMI reported. The official announcement of the report came after the country's religion authority declared that the people found guilty of insulting the Prophet Muhammad,
expressing their concerns about why the systems are not working.
And on food security, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday promised head of African states that they would ensure that Africa does not face food insecurity as a result of the end of the Black Sea political stability. Putin said while addressing the plenary section of the Russian-African Summit in St. Petersburg. Therefore, we have always paid and will continue to pay special attention to supplying our African friends with wheat, barley, maize, and other grain crops, including as humanitarian aid. Last week, Russia withdrew from the Black Sea grain deal under which it allowed the passage of this ship from Ukrainian port on the Black Sea carrying food grain shipments.
A man who shot and killed a custody sergeant in the British police station while handcuffed will spend the rest of his life in prison after being sentenced on Thursday. Louis de Zoisa, 26, was convicted last month of murdering Matt Ratana, a 54-year-old Metropolitan Police officer in a South London custody centre in September 2020. It was the first fatal shooting of a UK police officer since 2012. UK police are not routinely armed. passing sentence and northern poor crown prisoners in England and Wales, 7 whole life others, which are order. He added the suicide's actions after he was stopped by the police and shortly before he shot Ratana showed a degree of planning and premeditation.
And for North Korea, Russian Defense Minister Shoigu's visit was the first by the Russian Defense Minister to North Korea since 1991.
Ukraine this week attacks that is proving crucial but painstakingly slow as Ukrainian troops try to advance on Russian forces. As it trained on Wednesday, the sappers outlined challenges they face on the battlefield, offering an insight into why the counteroffensive has so far progressed slowly. Tasked with clearing tens of thousands of Russian miles, the sappers have to worry about booby traps, bombs, and mortar attacks. Using a metal detector is often futile because of the amount of shrapnel from the unexploded ordnance strewn around. They are stalling the speed of the advances. We have to work very carefully, said Alexander, one of scores of sappers training at the location in the southeastern region of Zaporizhia that Kyiv's military told Reuters not to disclose. Alexander, who uses a call sign agronomist, said NATO standards allowed for one person to advance 7 square meters within 4 hours.
The squashing of Andrew Michelson Rep's conviction after 17 years in jail has thrown a spotlight onto the failure by the miscarriage of justice watchdog to take up his case earlier. The Criminal Cases Review Commission declined to grant Michelson a new appeal hearing in 2012 and again in 2020, although it is considered different evidence than in a third review. The result is that an organization which was formed in response to notorious miscarriage of justice such as the Guildford and Brigham 6 cases now find itself associated for all the wrong reason with another. When it did final investigation, Michelson said it did not only after having evidence handed to it on a platter. While the case represents a very public indictment of the CCRC, it reflected long-standing concerns surrounding the watchdog.
Rishi Sunak is under pressure from Conservative MPs to kick off a controversial right-wing politician from the party's approved candidates list after his grassroots organization campaigned to deselect Tory MPs and attacks the integrity of the Privileges Committee inquiry into Boris Johnson. David Campbell Bannerman, a former deputy leader of the UK Independence Party, who defected back to the Tories in 2011, has said he wants to stand for the safe South Norfolk constituency, where the party has a majority of 36,000. You need to register to keep reading. It's still free to read. This is not a paywall. We are committed to keeping our quality reporting open by registering and providing us
The Home Office routine housing of unaccompanied child asylum seekers in a hotel is unlawful. The High Court was ruled the charity Every Child Protected Against Trafficking brought legal action against the government's department over the practice of housing accompanied children in a hotel, claiming the arrangements were not fit for purpose. In a ruling on Thursday, Mr. Justice Chamberlain said the routine was use of hotel for accompanied asylum seekers' children had become unlawful as the power to place the children in a hotel was only intended to be used on very short period in true emergency situation. He told a court in London it cannot be used systematically or routinely in circumstances where it is intended or function in practice as the substitute for local authority care. The judge continued from December 2021 at the latest the practice of accommodating children in hotel outside local authority care as both systematic and routine and had become an established part of procedure for dealing with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children.
President Biden announced new steps on Thursday to help Americans face the existential threat of climate change and weather extreme heat. We want the American people to know help is here, and we are going to make it available to anyone who needs it, Biden said, speaking in a summer of record-breaking temperatures in the U.S. and globally. The new measures will shield vulnerable workers from high temperatures, improve weather forecasting abilities, strengthen access to drinking water, and otherwise improve heat resilience, Biden said. Experts described the measures as positive but modest, and the president stopped short of declaring a climate emergency or directly addressing the central cause of the climate crisis, phasing out fossil fuels. Biden directed the Department of Labor to issue a hazard alert for workplaces such as farms and construction sites where workers face a higher risk amid high temperatures. The heat has killed 436 workers since 2011, according to federal statistics.
This is International Tit Bits on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break. The now new impalement in a specific during a landmark visit to the region on Thursday, warning of a threat to the sovereignty of French alternative in a region where the US and China are competing for influence. There is the Indo-Pacific and particularly in Oceania, new imperialism appearing a new power logic that is threatening the sovereignty of several states, the small, often most fragile, Macron said. Our Indo-Pacific strategy is above all to defend through partnership in independence and sovereignty of all states in the region where they are ready to work with us. China is seeking to expand its influence in the South Pacific, notable making inroads in Solomon Island, with which is signed as secretive defense play last year.
An 11-year-old girl from U.S. Florida was arrested Wednesday for means tracking the cell phone used to text 911.
A former British rap artist and alleged jihadist has died in custody in Spanish. The Interior Minister said the ministry said the cause of death is yet to be confirmed. He is facing up to 9 years in prison. A trial was set for sentencing July 14 and he was awaiting verdict. Abel Berry, 32, left London in Syria. He made a name for himself on social media sites by showing himself clothing the severed head of one of his alleged victims. Before joining the jihadist, Abel Berry performed as a rapper lyricist under the name Jane.
Ukraine's military says it has leader Alexander Kodaskovsky contradicted Mr. Putin, saying Ukraine had holding on to the outskirts and pushing on.
And from the central bank, the European Central Bank has raised 22,000. The bank raised the deposit rate in the 20-nation bloc for the 9th time in a row to 3.75%, up to 3.5%. The ECB said inflation continued to erase but was still expected to remain too high for too long. On Wednesday, the U.S. Central Bank raised rates to their highest level in 22 years. It is bid to control price. In the UK, where inflation fell to 7.9% in June, the Bank of England base rate is at 5% at its next decision on 3 August. The bank is widely expected to raise rates to 5.25%. The idea of raising rates is to make the cost of borrowing more expensive and so decrease demand and make price raise more difficult to pass on. And today, joining us on this conversation is a private legal practitioner, Abie Anthony Abo. Thank you so much for joining us today on this conversation. All right, let's look at the story. US President Donald Trump is accused of pressuring an employee to delete security footage at his Florida estate to obstruct the investigation into the classified documents case. The new charge read to Mr. Trump's allegation handling of government documents and retention of defense information and 2 of obstruction. Prosecutors say the footage show illegally held file being moved. Malaga staff member Carlos de Olivia has also been indicted. He is alleged to have asked what could be done to delete the footage. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty alongside his close side Walt Nutter, who also received 2 traditional charges of obstruction on Thursday. The reversed indictment outlined a alleged effort between Mr. Nutter and her Olivia, the property manager. Now, Mr. Abie, the national indictment on exposing classified documents is far from over. Fresh evidence are coming up as they pass by. Now he's been accused of asking his employee to delete his footage video. It seems these classified documents are the major issues for Trump, and this could have a way of paralyzing his political ambition. What is the possible outcome of this case?
Alleging political win shots, as used to be the case with every politician that is charged for one offense or the other. Supporters will always allege political witch hunting, because Trump is vying for the Republican ticket to contest the U.S. presidency next year, 2024, in May 2024. So, and part of the reasons why they are raising that allegation of witch hunt is because for them, other U.S. presidents that have left office, Clinton, even Obama, all of them, they all handle the classified documents. and none of them have been so charged for mishandling such documents. But I think they forgot to understand that in Trump's case, others upon request handed over these documents, but Trump resisted handing over these classified documents, and now it is leading to other charges coming up. It has now brought up new charges of obstructing justice against two of his staffs. You know, the new count is now alleging obstructing justice against two of his staff for agreeing to delete some footage of those security information you are holding. You will face the charges, and if you are found guilty, you will be convicted accordingly. So I see it as a good development if African and particularly Nigerian will learn from it. Like in one or two other discourses, I've always told people in Nigeria, we've never had any former president of this country, despite all the allegations made against them, being made to face law. We don't know the reason why, but I look forward to a day when people who hold political offices, even after they've left office, can be held accountable for the crimes they commit now, while in office.
We know that Trump has been putting up his own defense. I mean, he's been in office, so he has that privilege to be in possession of those documents. But looking at this new
appear in court and put in his defense, so the allegations and all the political supporters making unfounded allegations of political witchcraft, for me, is neither here nor there. The defenses, at the time the trial will commence, we expect him to also put in his defense. The trial will commence next year too, so I believe that he will prepare his defense, his lawyers will prepare his defense, and let's see what his defense will be. Because if, like other presidents, he has agreed and handed over these documents from the beginning, from the onset, then we wouldn't have gotten to this stage. But he resisted.
But he's talking about his resistance
to do the search. They actually demanded for this document. It was upon his refusal they invaded the estate, his property, and got those documents. So, for me, if he had agreed from the onset to release these documents, we wouldn't have been talking about all this. But you know his nature. You know, before now, there are a lot of charges against him after he has left office, unlike other former presidents. Those relating to his businesses, where he is said to have alleged to have falsified business records. Here and there, about 34 counts on that one, falsifying business records.
Now that's exactly that's exactly what we are saying. If he was able to claim himself of about 31 to 32 charges, and then this one is coming up again, of course, he said, when you talk about the other governors has been in the office, I mean, other president leaving, and then he's in his own case, he doesn't want to leave it. I could remember Trump saying that he has the right to those documents because he was the president. And again, don't you think that if he was able to claim himself of the 31 to 32, there's every tendency that he will still escape this one?
No, the trial for the falsification of business record has not ended. That trial is on. It's also to your private residence. You ought to have handed over these documents to the next official that is taking over from you. We have the Official Secret Act. It's also an offense in Nigeria to disclose. And you remember, there is also the allegation that when some CNN and other foreign media people came to interview him, he made some comments which tends to be revealing, exposing some of their security information. So it's not as light as one would look at it. The man by his nature is rancorous, sorry to use that word, and he seemed to be enjoying these allegations and back and forth charges here and there. So for me, let's cross our fingers and see what the law will do in this circumstance. But I think in every country has that Official Secret Act. They call it the Espionage Act, whereby certain informations are